I think indefinitely a weak day for democracy, again, as evidenced by that voter turnout. But I wonder too if a lot of the liberals who obviously didn't align with Del Duca's sentiments, especially I think as he tried to mandate a major campaign part of his campaign was trying to mandate the COVID injectables for children at school. And so I wonder that if liberals are just so stubborn that they would rather stay home and not vote than to actually get out and switch to a different party. I mean, the illegal carding that Ford tried to put in place after he already decimated small businesses and terminated workers who didn't want to comply with a mandated medical procedure. I wonder if he's learned anything from that over the last 2 years. That touting and letting the Ontario Science Table essentially have free reign into policy making decisions, and we saw that was based more on political science than actual science. So I hope that there's been some sort of refreshment, wake up call here for Ford, that he will say, obviously the tides have turned now. People are sick of the lockdowns. No one discussed any of the lockdowns and the policies and the measures that were put in place during the campaign trail, which I find very concerning because we lived under essentially totalitarian rule for the better part of 2 years under the Doug Ford regime. But I guess one way to look at this also isn't necessarily a cheer on for the fact that Ford won and he gained more seats, but rather a cheer on that the other two were so completely decimated that you saw both party leaders now resigning. Del Duca and Horwath are both passing the torch, so to speak, onto someone new to handle and manage the parties, because they just were obviously didn't have their things together enough to actually garner more support and more seats. The NDP lost what was it, 9 seats, and Del Duca only gained 1. He's not even official. The Liberals are not official party status. Neither were they the last time around. So I think that there's a small win there that you just saw, that Ontarians definitely didn't want the other two.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's a bad election, which is slightly better than a worse election. I was about to say, well, maybe the leadership campaigns for the Liberal Party and the NDP will provide better leaders. And I just know that's not going to happen. I know that with every passing year, those two parties are engulfed more by wokeism, by identity politics, by really a form of extremism. The Liberals haven't really cared about civil liberties in a very long time. The NDP haven't really been a party of the workers for a very long time. It was interesting how many labor unions did not endorse the NDP this time. I don't know. I mean, I'm 50 years old, and so a lot of naivete is being beaten out of me over the years through bad experience. And I've learned that things can always get worse. That's not a pessimistic point of view. It's actually the opposite. It's saying, however, there may be some good things today that we lose if we change. I think that the next NDP leader will be so diabolically opposed to civil liberties, it's going to be atrocious. I noted in my monologue, the Communist Party of Ontario had like 0.04% of the vote, because you don't need the Communist Party. You've got all your authoritarian needs provided by at least 2 opposition parties, and most of the time by the government. I don't know. I'm frustrated by it, and I'm trying to keep my hope alive by focusing on the federal level. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I wonder too if at the federal level, for instance, the NDPs, how they lost seats provincially is because of how distasteful the Jagmeet Singh has conducted himself over the last 2 years as well. Just complete disregard for the working class, which typically is their voter base. We saw that they lost their 3 seats in Brampton, which was a fairly stronghold. Jagmeet's brother lost his seat. The deputy leader lost her seat as well. So I think that people are starting to recognize on both political spectrums, both provincially and federally, just how much the leaders of those parties and the direction that they're heading have been inept failures over the last 2 years. And as I said before, it's maybe not a cheering on for the Conservative win necessarily, but cheer on for the decimation of that radical left. And I think that if we were to have a federal election now, as opposed to, just shy of 1 year ago, you would see more of that pendulum swinging back to the right once again, because I think a lot of the sleepy Canadians, as evidenced by Ontario's election last night, have awoken and recognize that we're not getting out of this mess that we're in as a country or as a province by continuing to pander to those woke lefties.
That was an excerpt from my daily TV-style show called The Ezra Levant Show. Each weekday, I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview a fascinating guest. I read some fan mail or hate mail, depends on which I like more, and we end with a video of the day. You can get it all at rebelnewsplus.com.